name is Vikki. The title that I had for this talk is Am I Like Other People? And so in this group, we have all sorts of people. We have the alcoholic, drug addict, the chaos creator, the controller fixer. Some people may be familiar with the word codependent. In Al-Anon, which would be the families of alcoholics, we often hear the word codependent. And it's a word that I had a lot of trouble wrapping my head around, but also it really seemed like a bunch of external actions. And so for me, like, I came to understand what codependent meant, I think for the most part, but then I still couldn't figure out, well, that's great. Like, what am I supposed to do about that? Like, how am I supposed to fix this? I'm 40 some years old and haven't managed to figure that out yet. And so then I really came to a new place of really understanding that the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous was a very practical, helpful, useful tool that could restore me to sanity. So I'm going to start off today actually reading from the book, which has become quite popular, I should say, maybe in some circles, a book called Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. And so I'm just going to read a short section here. It says, there's a quote, "Relationships are like a dance with visible energy racing back and forth between the partners. Some relationships are the slow, dark dance of death." Colette Dowling. And so Melody Beattie writes, "Up to this point, I've been using the words codependent and codependency as lucid terms. However, the definitions of these words remain vague. The definition of chemical codependency means being dependent psychologically and or physically on alcohol or other drugs. Overeating and gambling are also words that bring specific ideas to mind. But what is codependency? The obvious definition would be being a partner in dependency. This definition is close to the truth, but still unclear. It brings no specific image to mind. Codependency is part of treatment center jargon, professional slang that's probably unintelligible to people outside that profession and gibberish to some inside the trade. Jargon may or may not mean anything in particular. Jargon may mean different things to different people, or people may sense what a term means but not be able to clearly define it because it's never been clearly defined. And those are some of the problems I've encountered with researching and attempting to define codependency and codependent. So for me, that's really where, I had a really hard time getting out of that place. That just rang so true for me. But for me, the initial quote, so what I came to realize is that even once I dug into the definition, even once I began to understand, oh, codependency has these 4 characteristics: avoidant, controlling, defensive, and right now I can't remember the last one. But, it was like, oh, wow, here I have more knowledge. But there's just something inside of me that I just cannot stop. And I can't make sense of this. So I came across this group and they, I really came to this term of looking for emotional sobriety. That made sense to me. I fully understood what it meant to be drunk, to be alcoholic, to be of sober state of mind versus being drunk. And then I really could come to understand that in the emotional sense too. And it was very clear to me that I was not emotionally sober. Then I heard this other term that these people were using of chaos creator. And when you look up the definition of chaos, the definition, it says it's a state of extreme disorder and confusion. It's, extreme disorder and confusion. And that really, I would say, probably made sense of a lot of my internal state, never mind my external state. And the creator would be the person making that happen. And so I was like, oh, wow, here's me making that happen. Um, and, I really spent a lot of time looking in when we talk about that relationship dance that, that we do with another partner. I would say that for me, um, um, so the extreme state of complete disorder or confusion, there could be two types. So I'll try to stick to my notes so that I actually make some semblance of sense to you. There's two types. So we can be the external, like the public stress, where everybody else can see my stress. I lash out, I explode, it's a lot of external behaviors. You can see I'm always losing my keys. Um, uh, just I'm overcommitting to stuff and then I can't get things done. I'm all over the place. Um, or there can be the internal, the private stress person, where and maybe I can be a little bit of both, which I really was. Obsess, worry, I beat myself up. My negative self-talk is all consuming. I hold everything in and bottle it all up and then shut down. And so we have this fantastic list of things that I do as a chaos creator in my life: being late, procrastinating, disorganized, overspending, taking on too much, worrying, agreeing to do things that I don't know how to do, thinking like, oh, I can figure it out, um, neglecting responsibilities or relationships, picking a fight, being snippy, irritable, wallowing in self-pity, obsessing, overthinking, eating things that make me feel sick, projecting, being critical of others, worrying about what other people think, and not being able to let go of other people, but not being able to let go of my worry about other people or my worry about the things in my life, staying up way too late, um, sleeping in way too late, lying, oversharing, gossip, ignoring physical problems or physical symptoms, ignoring things that I need to take care of, not sticking with things. So there's this like whole list of kind of all these symptoms. Lots of them are like internal inside of me, lots of them are external. Even if I think I'm hiding them, probably the people closest to me can get a real sense of something's not okay with me. But really, there's the same end result, and it really results in like an emotional burnout. There's this emotional burnout that happens, and I find myself in this place of like, how did I get here again? Like, how did I do this again? I'm filled with remorse and guilt. I have gloomy thinking. And, I just really get to that point where I just need to take a nap. I just need to sleep. How do I just want to sleep this off, or I just want to hide. Maybe I'm gonna cancel everything. Like I just can't show up in life. I can't be present in life or in my world. And I think there's maybe some crossovers, right? A lot of if you're alcoholic, you can identify with a lot of those behaviors of like, yeah, that's how we live. And there's really not a big difference from what I've seen. But for me, the physical piece of this chaos creating, we might call it controlling, fixing. Once I start, I can't stop, and I have no control over what's happening in my body and my mind. And this physical piece can be really hard to grasp. So I'm going to go in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to page 44, the first paragraph, and I'm going to read from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm just going to replace some of the words here. In the preceding chapters, you have learned something about chaos creating. We hope we have made the clear distinction between the chaos creator and the non-chaos creator. If you honestly want to, did you find you could not quit entirely? Or if when chaos creating, you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably a chaos creator. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. And, so really for me, like I have no other option. There's like this whole list of things that I had done to try to bring peace to my internal state, to try to quiet my mind. And really, I had to come to this place where I'm not like other people. I really think that, and from what I've heard, taking people through this work, but also being taken through this work and hearing other people speak about this, when we get to this place of like, we honestly can't stop if we want to, it's like, and even like maybe sometimes I can stop, like maybe I won't make the phone call that I thought about making, or I'm not going to send the barrage of text messages that I thought I would send. Or maybe, I did get to bed early for like a little while. I kept my good routine and I took care of myself, but then I stopped, and I can't explain why I stopped. I can't explain why I go back in for that next hit of adrenaline. I can't. It's like there's a barometer, and at a certain point, like in a normal person, maybe this like coolant system kicks in to like, oh wow, this relationship dark dance towards death isn't really fun. I think I'm gonna like not do this. It's like they have this like natural barometer that I just don't have. Um, and it's like I don't have a coolant system. And so and I get all jacked up. Like I can't even explain it. It looks a lot like fight or flight. Um, and it is very much, I would say that I'm not no psychologist and I'm not going to pretend to be or try to be, but for sure, like if you've learned about fight or flight, like it's definitely involved here. Um, I can't stay stopped though. Like, and I can't, and why would I go back in? Like, why am I going to go back in? It doesn't make any sense. If I can see, like, this is what obsessing and worrying does to me, like that I actually get physically sick, like, oh, wow, I have chest pain again. How do I have chest pain again? Because I'm obsessing and worrying about this thing. Or maybe I'm getting in other people's lanes, like I'm getting up in other people's business. I'm trying to help them. They've got all these problems and I need to like help them. And I get all jacked up, and then, maybe they don't take my advice, and that doesn't go super well for me. If you don't take my advice, because I think I have a pretty good idea about what other people need to do in their life and how to better themselves. I maybe don't always have the best idea for myself, but I for sure can see really clearly for other people. We could call it like know-it-allism. I went to this 1 week codependency 12-step center, like a rehab. I went to codependency rehab for like a week, and it was this really safe place. It was during COVID. It was bizarre. It was just people that were completely different than me. And I felt so aware that I was really arrogant, that I thought I knew a lot. I was smart enough to like be really careful about like not presenting myself, not telling my story, not knowing, like not, oh, don't you people know who I am? Like I was really careful. I was really, really careful, but I can't stop myself. Like it comes out. And I was actually like confronted with the fact that I really am a know-it-all. And I could not stop myself. And these kind, sometimes not so kind codependents, um, fellow codependency people, we were just like being pretty honest with each other. And it was painful to be confronted with that and to see like, for me, it can look a lot like superhero mode, but it can also just be an inward obsession and just not being able to do the right thing or do the thing that I know that I should do. And I have this delusion that I can stop on my own. This is the lie that I tell myself. Like I get back into this delusion that I can stop on my own. And the truth is that I can't stay stopped. I'm not like other people. And the abnormal reaction that I have, I would say for people like me, for the codependency, for the Al-Anon, for the, when it comes to emotional sobriety, I would say that to recognize that we are not, emotionally sober, the physical symptoms might be a little bit harder to nail down. It might be a little harder to put our fingers on. But I would say I've really become quite attuned to it. And I remember my very first moment of realizing my anxiety. I knew that I had anxiety and I had really wanted to like overcome my anxiety for a really long time. And I'm come from a faith background, very involved in church and, some Christian things and, prayer, and really thought God was going to heal me. But the reality was that I was participating in my anxiety. And that was a really hard thing to face. So I became aware one night as I was laying in bed, like, and I could, the wheels were turning and I couldn't turn off my thoughts and I'm having trouble falling asleep. And I felt the physical sensation of the anxiety like coursing through my body. And I had this like moment of like, am I addicted to this? Like, could I be addicted to my own anxious state? Could I be addicted to these behaviors? Could I be addicted to this like sensation? Some of the other physical characteristics that I've become aware of, it would be like a rapid heartbeat, hyperactivity for some people, or getting really jacked up, or it could be like a state of confusion and just not being able to like make sense of what's happening around me, or clarify my thoughts or express myself. I actually do get physical heart pain. I actually do have chest pain. I've had chest pain at times. The sweats, or maybe a rash, or like a hot face, like there's physical symptoms that happen when I get into this state. Ongoing headaches. For some people, I really truly, through working with people, through doing this work and talking with many other people, I've heard people talk about how their panic attacks were actually part of this, and how they really saw this connection. Insomnia, I would say my nail biting. And, for me, I have autoimmune, I have eczema, I have skin conditions that I 100% believe have been tied in with this too. I didn't know how to pay attention to my body. I was completely, I believe that's actually, I've seen that's one of the symptoms is actually we don't take care of ourselves. If you're like a real adrenaline addict, if you're a real chaos creator, you many times don't take care of your physical body. You don't take care of your physical self. And so, a normal person, they just don't stay in that place. They're like, oh, this is really unpleasant. Like something's wrong here. I'm going to go to the doctor, or I'm not going to pursue this conversation. I'm not going to, they can set like, your drama is your drama. I'm not going to get up in your business, or, hey, I tried that once and that didn't work. Like, I'm not going to go back there and do that again. Whereas for me, like, the mental obsession piece, I forget and I go back into delusion, and I tell myself like, no, it's okay. I can get involved. I can jump in someone else's lane. I can jump in someone else's business. Like maybe it'll go different this time, or if I just do it this way. This book says, the big book says, if it doesn't say, so I find it interesting in this paragraph 1 of page 44 that it says like, if when you honestly want to, you find that you cannot quit entirely, or if when you are chaos creating, you have little control over the amount that you do, like how much you do after you start, then you are probably a chaos creator. And it kind of gives us those both options. Like maybe it's this, maybe you can't quit entirely, or maybe you just don't do as much as you want to do, right? Like maybe you want to scroll Facebook for like just a couple minutes, but you can't do that, and you can't not know what's happening. Maybe you want to like check in with like a couple people and see how they're doing. But you're not going to like really get all up in their business. You're just going to let them know that you care about them. And then you're just going to leave it at that. Like you just want them to know that you care, and that's it. Like you're just going to leave it there. But if you can't leave it there, then maybe you are a chaos creator. That's what this book is telling me. There's a spot in this book, and I forgot to write it down, where it makes a suggestion, or maybe this is a made up thing. Tell me, John, nod your head, where it says like, as an alcoholic, you could try like a drink a day for 30 days. Where did that come from? Is that in the book? Yes or no? It's not in the book. Okay, well, I've heard it said. And so I thought about that and I was like, well, maybe like if I'm not sure if I'm a real chaos creator, like maybe I could try texting just one text a day to like those people that I know I'm going to get all up in their business. Like they got a lot of stuff going on and I could really help them, but I'm not going to help them. I'm just going to show them that I care. So maybe I could just send one text a day and that's it. I'm just going to leave it there. One text a day for 30 days. Or maybe I could just go on Facebook, like just for like 2 minutes a day for 30 days. Like, could I actually just do that? Is that possible? To me, it just seems impossible. It seems impossible. Like I'm not like other people. And that's the thing about chaos creating, controlling, fixing. It really is tied in with like other people. And it's really, you know, I begin to see that I begin to believe, I believe it's part of the delusion that I'm at the mercy of like the external circumstances, that I am blown to and fro, that there's just no, getting, but, you don't understand, like, this is my life. Like, I have all this stuff going on. And of course I'm going to be this way because the world around me is the way that it is. And I can't be okay because the world around me is the way that it is. And I actually have come to believe that that's not true. I've come to believe that I can be okay. Because, this book tells me that I have an illness from which only a spiritual experience will conquer. So that's telling me that there is a spiritual experience that I can have that will conquer this illness, that will conquer this chaos that's happening in my life, that will conquer this illness in my internal state. And so the delusion has to be smashed. That's page 30. I just want to read that too, because I think it's really powerful. Page 30, paragraph 2. And this book, if you've never read this book, it's a fantastic book. It's actually not as thick as it looks, because it's mostly stories in the back, and those are always fun to read. But the first 164 pages are truly fascinating. And for me, I've changed all the words from drinking to thinking, or from alcoholic to adrenaline addict. So paragraph 2 says, we learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were chaos creators. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be smashed. And that picture of being smashed, like, you actually can't put that back together. Like, if I take my favorite mug and I smash it on the kitchen floor, it's gone. It's done. Like, it's not my favorite mug anymore. It's garbage. I'm not fixing that mug. So this illusion of Vikki and who Vikki was, her story, Vikki's story, who she thought she was, who she thought she was, and who she thought she was presenting herself to be to the world, that had to be smashed. My attachment to my story, to the things that had happened to me, to the world and how it had wronged me, had to be smashed. That attachment, I really believe, it actually contributed a lot to my internal state and to my mental obsession. And so the good news, and I knew that I wouldn't have time to get into the good news, but we have lots of other meetings every week where we talk about all the good stuff. But this meeting, I really felt like I just wanted to present, how do I know if I am a chaos creator or, a controller fixer? And how do I know? Like, how do I know? And I think, as we stop and think about the world around us, I think it's important to see that there is a solution, and to know that there is a solution. But if I don't know what the problem is, I will have a really hard time applying a solution. we do that all the time with our physical body. Like, I'm going to go to the doctor and beg for an x-ray if I think I have a broken leg. It's really important for us to sit down and see, like, what is really the problem? Like, is it really just the world around me? Because I could have listed for you all the problems in my life. I did that, and then I would kind of repackage it like, oh, but I know it's really not a big deal. And this is super manageable. It's just, none of these things are big deals. It's just like the cumulative. I remember saying this right before I got into digging deep into this work. I remember saying, I know everything isn't really that bad, but when you just put it all together, it's all just really overwhelming. And so I just need a break. And I got a break. Like, my job ended. I didn't have to go to work anymore. And I was taking a year off work. And this was like pre-pandemic. The pandemic hit 6 months later. So I had 6 months I couldn't blame my stressful job for my problems anymore. I couldn't blame my alcoholic husband for my problems anymore. I couldn't blame the outside circumstances. And I took that opportunity. And I think any of us can take that opportunity to look at ourselves, how do I think I'm presenting myself? But what is the reality of this internal state? And is it possible? Is it possible that I have a physical component going on, but also like this mental obsession? Is it possible that these things are seemingly like outside of my control and I need outside intervention?